Each year, Microsoft Research hosts hundreds of influential speakers from around the world, including leading scientists, renowned experts in technology, book authors, and leading academics, and makes videos of these lectures freely available.
Thanks everyone for coming. I want to introduce Anders Schepelern. Is that how you pronounce your name?
That's roughly it. Yeah.
Roughly. Anders is the CEO and founder of Wordy. Wordy is a service that enables crowdsourcing of copy editing. He will tell us more about it. Wordy has been running since 2011, and so there's a lot of lessons learned in the project behind this. So with that, let me just unlock my computer.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, cool.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me. I call this Wedding a Brown Bag because it's not going to be like a sales talk of Wordy. It's going to be, I'm going to try to answer some of the questions that Andreas had. But I'm also going to give you a bit of background. My background is that I studied political science and philosophy. My professional career has been in advertising. That's pre-startup land. And then I switched a little bit to banking. And I then started Wordy, basically. I came up with the idea of Wordy. I'm Danish, which is a disclaimer, really. So you're not going to have kind of a fantastic experience of me really putting everything together in a great way and stuff. That's not what I do. So you can always ask if there's something that you do not understand, if there's something I'm missing, just let me know about it. So that's a bit about my personal background. The background of Wordy is that I could see that I had a growing need to qualify my own writing. So I'm Danish, but most of the stuff that I did was in English. And I did this for money, right? So I was basically shipping a product that I could not qualify. I had no real tools of qualifying this product. And every time I kind of like thought, well, off it goes, and we'll hope for the best. And I sent my invoice, and I hoped that everything was okay. But I was basically shipping something that I put my stamp on, and I put my signature on, that I couldn't qualify. And I couldn't really explain if the overall quality of this thing was in good shape. And that really bugged me. So the initial idea, which became the long-term solution as well, was to basically say, well, I want to acquire real-time editing from the best possible editors at a competitive price point. So by real-time, I meant if I had 400 words I wanted to send out, I was not going to wait 2 days to have these 400 words back again. And if I had 4,000 words, I was not going to wait a week. I had to get this stuff back quickly so I could just ship it along. Best possible editors is something that has to do with the quality of editors, of course, but also has to do a lot with the cultural background of the editor. I wanted editors that had an understanding of what it was that I did at the time, so I didn't have to kind of bring them up to speed every time. And that was actually a huge thing for me. And at competitive price point, of course, even though I was unsure of the quality of the writing itself, I could sit down and spend an hour on a 400-word thing and make sure that this ad copy, for example, was in really good shape. But I also wanted to do other stuff, and the value I could create by doing other stuff which was, of course, or should be much bigger than the actual price we pay in editors. So the real-time editing, the best possible editor, and a competitive price point were basically the operative words of the initial idea. And so to be answered here today is a list of 7 questions, okay? So I'm going to try and do that, 4 minutes per question, something like that. It's surprises in building Wordy, it's difficulties, crowdsourced competition, conflict, payments, recruitment, and publicity. So that's roughly what Andreas asked for, and that's what I'm trying to do today. Let me know if I don't, and please feel free to interrupt so we can have a discussion about that. But that's what I'm trying to answer. I'm just going to run through a few definitions here. So first of all, I'll define product, the product that I work with, as a text of any length on any subject. So basically anything you can write, be it short, long, public, private, what have you. I'm not putting in value or anything that'll make you go, well, I'll not pay to have this particular product made better, and I'll actually pay to have this particular product made better. I'm not kind of scoring the product in value here. I say that the product that we work with are basically small, short, long, academic, advertising text, everything that can basically be put down in writing. And so that's our product. The service itself is a distributed expert workforce with a guaranteed quality of output. And of course, it's not a crowdsourced workforce in the sense that we just bring in people to the platform and you can score them and they'll slowly rise in the hierarchy and you can then pick the best ones, etc. And of course, as a platform, we guarantee the quality of our output, of our product. So that's the service. And the offer, and this is taken from our FAQ page, is basically correcting grammar and punctuation, ensuring coherent usage, internal consistency, and coherent logical structure in the product, right? So when it leaves Wordy, you will have a text that hopefully was better than before you send it to Wordy, and hopefully a lot better, right? So that's what we're trying to do. Now, just finally, one final definition is the definition of a knowledge worker. This is a very broad definition, but it also needs to be in there, and I'll tell you why. So it's anyone who creates, distributes, and applies knowledge, which, funny enough, is also our core client. So it's all of you guys, it's basically all of the guys that send through jobs via Wordy. So knowledge workers are classified like this. And of course, our editors are also part of this group. But the great thing about our editors is that they can sit anywhere. And that's what you can actually do with some part of knowledge work. Not saying with your work, but saying with some work, you can actually make sure that you can send this out to a professional distributed workforce, and you'll get exactly the same quality and output that you would have if you had someone in-house. And you can do that with a lot of knowledge work. Some say 5, some say 10, some say much more, some say much less, but you can actually do that with a lot of knowledge work. So the first thing is how we recruit. And we basically focus on 3 things, right? So again, we're an expert distributed workforce. So we're, of course, looking for experience, and we're looking for skill, and we're looking for time. Experience is what an editor has when he or she has worked a long time in editing, has had a fruitful career as an employee, and is now a freelance, for example. And that is something that we take very seriously. We can also do stuff with experience that is quite great. We can look at the digital footprint of the editor. We can ask for references. We can check these references. And we can basically say, well, this is an editor that would fit really well into Wordy. Time. An editor needs to be able to assign some time on our platform during a workday. And so it is roughly between 1 and 2 hours that any individual editor can spend on Wordy during a workday. And of course, we need that, so we do not have these relationships where an editor is on the platform and then 12 months pass by and then the editor's on the platform again. We need to have some sort of way to make sure that these editors are actually regular editors on the platform. And skill is not something that we can measure with a digital footprint, or we can measure by asking for references, etc. Skill is something that we need to test, just as any old job interview. We need to test some of the skills that the editor says he or she has. And so we have a quite elaborate house style, which basically is how we handle content of a generic, how we handle product of a generic nature. And we have some quite elaborate tests on how to actually qualify and verify the skill of these editors. So of course you can say, well, now we want to have, if we bring in a lot of students, then, well, this one falls out, right? And we're just looking for this middle thing here. And if we bring in a lot of fresh old editors that are just starting out as freelancers, well, perhaps it's either their skill or experience that is a problem. So we're basically looking for a combination of these three things. Yeah?
Well, you said that you request people to spend 2 hours a day on the platform?
Not a request,
Okay.
but it's something that we like to see, right? So we follow each individual editor, and if an editor does a lot of work, he or she is promoted in the system. And especially, of course, if that work is of fantastic quality. A lot of work, bad quality, the opposite happens.
So they kind of tell you when they're online? They tell the system, I'm online right now?
Yes.
I can receive
Yeah,
any...
yeah.
And they get paid for the time they're not working, but they're online? Or they don't get paid for that?
They don't get paid for that. This is actually, these three things are the real person we're looking for is a freelance editor. Let's say an editor that has local, regional clients, but do not have a global output, and is perhaps not aware that that product that he or she, or the service that he or she is offering, is a fantastic service. And I really believe that. I think it's the best thing to be able to actually construct and to polish language into something that's well written, that's easy to understand, that's super easy to digest, etc. And that is a very, very fantastic ability to have. But these freelance editors, I'm afraid, don't know that yet. So that's something that I'd like to tell them at least, or I like to tell them that it is actually something that they can feel proud of, and a very, very specific skill. Of course, experience and skill also comes with what is the editor's educational background and what is the editor's professional background. So we're basically looking for 14 years of experience, 2 hours, 1 to 2 hours per day to be able to work. Of course, you can go away on a 14 days vacation, right? And we're not, but we are tracking that. And of course, skills where on our internal reviewing system, we would like to see, 80% or more on our quality scale. Who is that? So that's the typical editor on Wordy. A man in a hat doing stuff with a stick. So that's the recruitment process. And this is, of course, what we're trying to automate as much as possible, but checking up on references and digital footprints, etc., is something that is very manual in a sense. So reviewing, the 5-star review. When I say that we have a not a crowdsourced platform, and we vouch as a brand for the quality of the product, we do have internal scoring, which also includes stars, but we do not show these stars to clients, because what we want to do when we have these editors with these excellent skills, with a lot of experience, and really they can do stuff on their own, and we don't have to intervene. They can also take on the project management role, and that's basically a way of saying, well, when an editor and a client hooks up through Wordy, the client should feel comfortable that this editor can actually do the job, and is not, does not have a 4.5-star review or even a 3.5-star and stuff like that. If there is an editor which scores below par, we'll of course make sure that that editor knows it, and if that continues, that editor slowly moves away from actually being able to acquire jobs. But the editors that we do put in front of clients are what I would consider 5-star editors. So we do not make it your responsibility to choose between this and that editor. We actually make it the editor's responsibility to choose work that fits with his or her description. And that is something that I think is very valuable from a client perspective. You don't have to go through endless profiles of editors, roughly doing the same thing, all with 5-star reviews. They all look great. And as an editor, you can actually pick and choose between jobs that fit your profile. So I say, in this case, what's the point of giving a star review to an external star review to an editor? In case of conflict, if the client feels that this product is simply not good enough, we review. First of all, we look at the product before it went through Wordy, and we look at the end product, and then we offer a proportional refund or not. And this has basically got to do with, if the client asks for a refund, we'll give them a refund, but we'll also give them an explanation why we think that refund is unfair. Well, here are 400 words that you sent through. The editor made 50 or so changes, and the text is actually much better now. And we rely heavily on internal scoring and reviewing when doing that. But of course, we'll give a client a refund, but we'll also send a very detailed explanation of why we think that is a job that's either been well done, or we can agree with the client and say, well, this is simply not a well done job. And of course, that's an entirely different thing. But we do try and learn from these conflicts. And since we go through a lot of pain to actually score and validate these editors, we rarely see conflicts, but they are there, right? And it can be based on either the end product, or it can be based on some sort of communication issue during the job itself.
That's what I was going to ask about.
Yeah.
Which is, how often is the process iterative and a lot of correspondence back and forth between the author and the editor, and do things fall into the mire at that stage?
Yeah. So basically, so the client actually has to write a brief to start with, and some briefs are just edit this, and some briefs are quite specific. And well, the better the brief, the better the job, I say, right? And so if the editor has any questions or comments during while he or she is working on that job, he or she will get in touch with the client and say, well, I do not understand this and that. And that's the great thing, again, right? The project management role is now the editors and the client. So we don't have to sit and intervene and say, well, write this and this, fall back. So again, by using this expert pool of people, or this pool of expert people, it's also, you can actually get a lot of quality from these people. And I think the more power you actually give the individual editor to cancel jobs, to get in touch with the client, to do this and that, the better they perform, and the more value the client gets as well. So it's actually a win-win thing.
Have you ever had the need to kick out a customer that is abusing the refund?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah. So when we started out, Google Translate was a great way of sending through jobs on Wordy and making translation companies used us to qualify really crappy product, and we couldn't do that. So we had to say to the customer, this is just not possible. We cannot take this piece of product and turn it into something else. It's not doable.
And the same with the editors? Have you had the need to remove editors from the system?
Well, we refine that process where we don't have to come to that. We don't let editors in that we have a feeling that we'll need to kick out at some point, right? So the more refined that acquisition process is, you don't need to kick people out there.
What kind of continuous assessment do you have for editors, though? Because someone's skill could change over time and get better.
Yeah. Wordy is not a learning platform, right? So as you say, their skills could improve over time. Right. And I agree with that. But if you put someone in front of a client and actually charge money for that, then the whole learning experience is kind of gone, right? But we can actually touch on this a little bit later because I think it's actually quite important. And it's something that we definitely need to do something about because that is part of being part of a workplace, right? That you improve and you do things together. And with a service like this, that interaction is just not there yet. But it needs to be there for people to improve. So that's the conflict side of things, right? And again, if the first product is simply not in a state where we can edit it, we do not touch it and we refund the client. If the end product is not good enough, we refund the client. If the end product is good enough and we feel that the client has made some kind of strange claim, then we refund it, but we certainly learn from that experience.
Do you do any other client satisfaction? Because they might say, yeah, this is acceptable, or this was really great, or this editor had great insight.
Yeah.
So they may be above average.
Yeah. We do ad hoc stuff like that, and we take 300 key accounts and say, how do you like this and that? Is there one particular editor that you really like? Is there one particular editor that could do better? Stuff like that. Right? But it's more on an ad hoc basis with really short, not long, interviews and stuff like that. And of course, we look at the client reviews of editors as well, because we have that. You can actually score an editor. We just don't advertise it. So you can actually, you can make yourself heard through that, right? Yeah, cool. But it's a great way of keeping the presentation flowing.
Yeah.
And of course, the better people you have, the less conflict you have, and I think that's the real learning here. And payments, well, it's fairly simple, really. We serve prices in euros, pounds, or dollars, and that's for clients to know. We then track whatever editors are doing, and we track with euros for editors, and then we basically just pay them a price per word, and they get that price every end of the month. Of course, there are some wonderful services out there where you actually do not lose that much in a currency conversion situation. So it's actually it's gotten cheaper to run a company like this, where we have so many variations of dollars: New Zealand dollars, Australian dollars, Canadian dollars, US dollars. That's it. Pounds and of course euros is just one currency, but also all these transactions going out. It's still a lot of manual stuff, but it's much easier now than it was even in 2011, right?
How do you deal with taxes for the workers? Do you give them?
Yeah. So editors are freelancers, and they basically just should give that kind of information to their tax authority. So we don't do anything there.
Right.
Of course, since we're registered in the UK, we pay VAT to some editors who are registered companies, but that's it. And so some of the micro difficulties is, of course, to facilitate that communication between the editor and the client, which is so valuable. And that is often missed, but that is a design issue, right? You want to say, you can actually get in touch with Rosemary, and you can ask her questions, and you can read her profile, and you can do stuff with her that has to do with this product, and you can make it better, and you can learn from each other. Handling impossible jobs, right? That's something that we've gotten pretty good at. It's not that impossible jobs are there. It's jobs that are simply not, we cannot conclude or we cannot finish these jobs based on the quality that they have, but they're rare, really. And of course, the one thing that we are struggling with is to ensure consistency across jobs. Here's Microsoft Research. Here's one document per month from Microsoft Research, and that document is probably done by a different editor each time, and has some sort of there has to be some sort of consistency between these these documents, and that's something that we are working on. And how do we actually solve that? So we have 4 different editors. Even perhaps a house style. If no house style, then how can you actually, as a client, say, I really like this job, and it was done precisely the way I wanted to, and I want to I just want to replicate that process across all other jobs to have that kind of consistency. But that is probably the most important micro difficulty that we have, right? And of course, macro difficulties, and this is where I think it gets really exciting, is that we want to turn Wordy into any a workplace, really. A place where you can learn and where you can have discussions about what it is that you do, and really better yourself in a way where we're not a learning platform, but we want to take these really good editors and make them even better. And we can do that through social interaction between editors. But if one editor is in Auckland and another editor is in Vancouver, it's quite hard to facilitate that interaction. And it's something that I definitely want to work on. And of course, creating these real and lasting relationships, and not, again, I'm not an expert in this, so I don't know how crowdsourced work really, how crowdsourced platforms really work. But if you see each individual worker as a silo in his or her own right, then you miss out on that really cool social interaction that could be there. And you want to create these lasting relationships because you want to get people to interact with each other. And I'm sad to report that so far we're also just treating editors and silos as silos. And again, to turn Wordy into a workplace, you have to somehow facilitate that interaction. And then it's basically just adding more value to the process, and that value is already there. So the human capital is there. And they can do so much more. So let's say you want to learn how to write this and that. You can actually ask the editor about it. Let's say you're venturing into something new. Well, you can find an editor who can actually give you some really good sparring in that. And so all that, we need to unlock all that value that comes from an expert workforce. And there's so much good stuff there. So it's not just grammar and punctuation. It's also knowledge and how to actually write something that makes great sense and can actually do what it is that you're trying to do with that specific product. And that's it. So I think I answered most of the questions.
I don't know if people have seen Wordy. Can you do a demo from your perspective of how Wordy?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's way back.
Yeah.
And maybe the Google Docs integration would be nice to see.
Yeah. Can I get a way to access the good old homepage here? Cool. So this is me, and this is Wordy, right? Wait. Now it gets so boring. With an on-screen demo that was not prepared. But this is basically what you do. Hey, yesterday I sent through that presentation, and Lynn picked it up, and she edited it for me, and I can actually give you some statistics. Perhaps that's even better to show here, right? So I was up 6:07 a.m. London time, and at 6:08 Lynn picked it up, and since it's just where is it? Since it's just 141 words, Lynn had it ready for me. Oh, there, yeah. Yeah, Lynn had it ready for me 6 minutes later, right? So that was my way of making sure that this presentation would not at least look stupid in print, and making sure that everything was done right. And this is basically the kind of service I was looking for way back when I said, okay, I wanted this to be done really, really quickly, and I wanted to be done, in this case, €6, which roughly is what, 8 US? Yeah, something like that.
Is that based on time or words?
It's based on words. In this case, we have a minimum order. So we have a minimum order of 300 words.
You can't use it for tweets.
You can use it for tweets if you group your tweets. Sorry? Yeah. In this case, it's a, listen, in this case, it's a PDF. And I'm not sure if that's going to show up real nice on this screen. I'll just go ahead and click it, right? Take the leap of faith. And there should be some changes in there. There, Lynn has removed the full stop. There, another full stop. Save again.
When people use Word documents, they use track changes, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and again, so you can see all the little, oh, oh, not all. I was, this is not a long text, so not so many things could go wrong. So here there are some things with how we set this up, but the thing is that this was actually a quotation from Wordy, so I did not change any of this, even though Lynn would like me to, right? Yeah. With a longer type job, I could have said to her, well, this is actually a quotation, so could you please just ignore that stuff?
Do you have a sense on the distribution of types of documents like PDFs versus Word versus PowerPoint?
Yeah, so the reason why I'm here is also that I'm in Vancouver right now, I'm speaking to my developers, and we want to be able to track this because we have absolutely no idea. And I have we have a pretty good, fair understanding of what it is that people actually send through. Word docs is certainly up there, PDFs are also, but Google Docs is actually picking up pace, and we just want to be able to track that.
Have you looked at the Office APIs that were announced yesterday? Microsoft Office now has a way to integrate Word documents on.
That's an unfair question. I was working on this presentation.
Sorry.
But I'll probably look at them later.
How does the Google Doc integration look like?
Yeah. So we have a integration that basically, it's not from Google side. You send, well, let me rephrase that. You do not install an add-on Google side. You actually hook up your account with your Google Drive account. So there's a handshake going on there. And basically it looks like this. I go like this. Ah! I'm pretty sure I cannot show you.
Maybe it's because you're in private mode.
Yeah, it could be. Yes, something like that. Yeah, I couldn't really answer that.
So
But
once you
let me try and go to Google. Whoop. There's my document, right? And then I need a list.
That's my account. You can
That's
use
your
it.
account?
Yeah,
Okay,
you can use
cool.
it if you want.
Yeah. And then. Sorry, I'm opening stuff here that I shouldn't. So I'll just go ahead and close this real quickly. Basically, what you can do is you can select a document and you can send it off to Wordy. So then you're then taken to Wordy and you just go through the ordering process as you would any other job. So what we will have is an add-on where you actually just push, you take that add-on and you just push that document towards Wordy. So you don't even have to go to Wordy. So I'm not a big fan of that. I'm not a big fan of the web application as such because I think that it should really go on where people are. So when you ask, okay, do you have that new, or did you hear about the new Office API? I think that's a wonderful thing because you don't want to leave that document once you're in it, right? You don't want to save it, go to Wordy, write the brief and everything. You just want to be in that document. Just as you would, send it off for printing, you would also send it off for editing. And that's really where I want to take it. So the web application to me is actually, yeah, it's a necessary evil.
You mentioned at the beginning sort of various sub-communities within this, and in the area of academic audiences, I know that there's a whole growing industry now, especially in China and in India, for people who are publishing into English language journals. And you also mentioned your house style. Do you also take in, if somebody's submitting to IEEE or submitting to ACM, do you have an understanding of the publisher style?
Yeah, so you can basically, you can attach a house style to a document, or you can say, well, I always want this house style for all documents, right? That's where consistency kicks in, where it's really cool. But if a client does not have a house style, and we try to be consistent across jobs, it's a little bit more, it's harder. But you can either say, well, I want you to follow this house style, link to it, or I want you to follow this house style and upload it and send it through with the job, right? So, but that's a huge thing, especially for academic.
Things like, specific fonts and formatting of citations and all
Often it's part of the house style, right?
So how is the house style represented? Like, what does it look like?
It's just a document that says you have to do this and that, or you have to adhere to this and that. So let's say that you're writing an academic speech. Let's say you're not doing that. But you're actually writing an academic piece for a specific journal in the US, for example. Then they'll have some things that you should adhere to, and it could be font size. It could be that you have to list your quotations in a special way. And it could be that you have to use these special words.
So that can take a lot of time.
That can take a lot of time. Yeah.
Is that part of the cost structure?
It's part of the cost structure as it is right now. And that's because jobs that take time, even up other jobs that take not that much time. So I want to be able to offer, and since we are actually working with these brilliant people, I also want to be able to offer fair compensation for their work, right? And so we are trying to adhere to these suggested hourly rates for editors, and sometimes, again, some jobs just take a lot of time, other jobs don't, and that evens out.
So I noticed from your editor guide that there's some things that are not in scope, like you're not supposed to do research, you're not supposed to find statistics and so on.
Yeah.
Do you ever have challenges with clients like don't realize that when they come in? How much an education do you have to do with clients?
Not much, because research and stuff is something that academic clients do them on their own, right? We also have ethical guidelines that say, well, we cannot take that piece of terrible quality and turn it into something that's actually ready for publishing. So it's basically what we do is that we have a very specific list of things that we can do with a text, and a very specific list of things that we cannot do to a text. And it's not a problem that we see that often. So in some way, we must have made it clear to clients that this is actually what we do, right? Yeah.
Who are your clients primarily? Like students or companies?
Companies, yeah. So companies put down most of the monthly turnover, and it's from all over the place. So I just mentioned euros, pounds, and dollars, right? So 80% of our turnover is in US, 10%, no more, 15% is in euros, and just 5% is actually in euros, even though pounds, even though we are registered in England, which is quite funny, but that's how it is. So, yeah, a lot of clients actually in the US, also quite a few clients in the Middle East, and of course in mainland Europe as well. And these clients are academic institutions, larger key account clients, and then all the other, private people, for example, just sending through this and that, applications, resumes, whatever, just a hodgepodge of anything.
Do you find that most of the people are people whose language is not English as their first language?
Yeah. So this is a very, very good representation of the typical client. Multiple nationalities under one roof, publishing a lot and trying to get as much out of the door as possible so they can focus on other things. And that's really the typical client. That said, it's also clients that have multiple writers. English first language, right? But they have multiple writers, and they want to make sure that there's a consistency across writing. So that's also something that we see. Yeah? Yeah?
I was thinking that if one of your employees or your editors leaked intellectual property of a company, you slightly would probably be the one who's sued, and usually you would have insurance for that. But there probably aren't insurers who have products for that type of company structure. So I guess I'm wondering, what sort of typical business activities has sort of the surrounding ecosystem of starting a business have really lagged behind and are not conscious of how to handle a business like yours?
Yeah, we do not have one legal client. Right?
You mean as far as?
Yeah, as far as they do not trust the platform.
Yeah.
They do not trust us to actually receive their content and send it back again, right? But we have clients that send through yearly reports, press releases, stuff like that, stuff which is actually highly confidential.
Yeah.
But then we set an editor team for them of a relatively small editor team,
Right.
and we sign the NDA and all that stuff. But you're completely right. we cannot ensure that kind of thing. And we cannot make sure that this kind of thing does not happen, right? So it's also a little bit of a leap of faith for clients. But yeah, again, drawing from a pool of experienced freelance editors, they also know these kinds of things, right? But it all goes back to it's a question of trust, really, and that's especially for legal firms not good enough.
Well, I guess I also mean that when you're starting, you run a business, right? Taxes are probably an unknown area. You as a business having insurance for this type of thing. I mean, normally businesses get like errors and omissions insurance.
Yeah, we don't have any insurance for that. No.
Yeah. So I just wonder if there's other areas that are not as obvious.
Well, the thing is that we will look at that insurance if a client comes up and say, well, we'll spend this amount of money that can actually, that can actually pay for that kind of insurance. Until then, clients find us and they use us. We have an NDA in place. We do reach out to bigger clients and say, do you want us to sign this? Yes, we want you to sign our own NDA and all that stuff. But when push comes to shove, really, if a really big client says we have a problem here, then we have a huge problem. Okay? Yeah.
On the one hand, you talk about this as being a crowdsourced platform, and well, you use that term a few times. And what I see as one of the benefits to a company is saying, here's a sort of in the same way we talk about cloud computing, you use as much or as little as your need is at any point in time.
Yeah.
But this sort of guaranteed consistency, not knowing whether each document you're submitting is going to be going to the same editors. Do companies develop a relationship with the individual editors?
Yeah.
And how does that play out over time?
Yeah.
Do they come back and say,
Yeah.
I want Sally?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so just
But you said before that the client isn't picking the editor is picking the client.
yeah. But the editor can, the client can easily write, could Lynn do this? I want Lynn to do this, right? Because she did all the other 4 documents and she did really well. So I want Lynn to do this.
You can bookmark editors.
You can bookmark editors, basically, right? And it's a real easy process just to write the editor's name, and that's it. Other editors will hopefully leave it alone. And if it just sits there, other editors will get in touch with the client and say, hey, do you need us to do this, right? And then an editor will pick it up.
How big is your editor workforce right now?
We have, 150? Yeah, I say 200 in the video. Getting there. And of course, some work a lot, some don't work that much, and that's basically it, right? But just to come back to that, so I see what we do as a distributed workforce, a distributed expert workforce, right? A crowdsourced thing is another thing, because then we suddenly have all these questions from clients saying, well, I like this guy, and that guy's, does fairly awful. And the thing is that we do not want to assume, or we do not want to give that client, or we do not want to give the client that task of project management and quality scoring and all that stuff, because, as you mentioned, they came to us for a specific reason. They cannot do it by themselves, right? So if they cannot do it by themselves, are they then able to score us, right? And the answer is probably no.
So I really like the platform. I just put 2 jobs on it. It's
Yeah.
great. One thing that comes to my mind is if I were running like a content creation department at a large company, I would want to license your platform, plug in my own full-time people.
Yeah.
It's almost certainly better than what I can do myself.
Yeah.
Have you thought about that kind of model?
Yeah, but yes, that's the white labeling thing.
Or even you keep running as a SaaS, but I plug my own people into it.
Yeah. We've definitely had that question, but it's not something that we'd explored, right? So it's like, yeah, you could do that. The one huge client that was almost ready to do that said, oh, they would like their own system of Excel sheets, emails going forward and back, and there wasn't really anything we could do about it, because suddenly this whole discussion turned perhaps a little bit political. And then you have, I want to protect job and all that stuff, but it's a really nice platform, actually. And if you have your own closed editor team, even in-house, right, you can actually do stuff a lot quicker. And as a project manager, it's actually so much more easy to just, to distribute jobs and send on. But the one big one that said we could actually try this did not, it didn't pan out. So it's like, okay, well, perhaps we're just better off by doing what it is that we're doing and not subleasing this platform out.
So SharePoint has something like that. There's a dedicated translation workflow, but what they don't have, you still have to define the pool via the permission system who takes up that translation object.
So I was thinking that just inside Microsoft, right? We have this content, publishing team, and I have no way to access them because I don't know the email, the magic person's email.
Yeah.
But if they could put us on the web and then plug their own people in, this confidentiality thing would go away.
Yeah, I think the immediate answer to that would be Microsoft is always welcome, right? Yeah. But it actually, in most organizations, you have like this copy desk, and they're somewhere, and you don't quite know where they are, and you don't quite know how to order this, and suddenly it becomes, quite cumbersome to actually go through this process. So of course, if you just ship off stuff, that would be much easier. But that also brings us back to that whole thing of having Wordy next to the print button, right? That's where you want to have it. And it shouldn't be this whole web application, you're now in your 15 line, whatever. It should really be like this real-time experience of just having someone else go through your document so you can go and create value somewhere else. And I think that's the real key of the platform. Yeah.
Just to follow up, have you ever thought about allowing real-time conversations? I see you've got this really cool IM thing,
Yeah.
which I expect to use.
Yeah.
Like, if I want to have a video call through
Yeah.
some of these
Yeah,
stuff.
I thought about that. We're just waiting for the right. We cannot develop it ourselves. But I've heard of one. I think it's called Leia. Leia. And you can implement conversation like that into apps, and they're coming up with a web interface.
There's also ShowKit, which is
Yeah, could be it. Yeah. But that's definitely something, and that is the value creation process, right? Boop, here you are, here you go, and stuff like that. That's so fantastic, right? You want to have that conversation about a specific subject, and you're 5,000 miles apart. You do not necessarily know each other, but now you suddenly have that working relationship, which is something that only these platforms can do. Call them crowdsourced, call them expert distributed workforce. It doesn't really matter, but that's the real magic of it, and that's also where that whole value is actually where it's hidden, right? Yeah.
What features do you expose in your API currently? So you have an API, but
Yeah, it's really simple, right?
What can you do through the API?
Create job, create account, create initiate a conversation with the editor, know when the job is done, and that's basically it, right? Paid for job? No, not pay for job. You can actually pay for, because we charge up front. So you can create job, but if you haven't got any money in your account, you have to go to Wordy and fill it up. So with the to start with the Google integration, we have to update that whole API thing, and that's coming also in this quarter as well. Yeah.
Do you do full language translation, or does it have to start in English?
It has to start in English. Yeah.
Why?
Well, because that's translation is a completely different game, and it requires a completely different setup and structure, and you have to make a choice of where we want to do this by hand, or we want to have some machine translation in there, and then we would send it through editors and stuff like that. So it's definitely something that people ask for, but I feel that we just, we have our own little niche going on here, and I really want to explore that niche before we start venturing into new things. So additional languages would be great. Arabic, French, German, Italian, stuff like that. That would really be great, because that's also what clients are asking for. But of course, the next thing that they're asking for is, hey, could you take that English piece and turn it into whatever? Well, I could do that, but it requires a few emails going forward and back. And it's not going to be something that we probably not going to be something that we integrate into Wordy. Could be trusted, partnership, API stuff, something like that, yeah.
Any more questions? All right, well, let's thank Anders.
Yeah.